Did Lou Gramm formally announce he was in the band, or was he formally released from the band, or what notified the public and the music industry?
We didn't really make a lot of noise about it. What happened was we started to prepare this new album with Lou, and over the period of the first week, we started to get together to write a bit, and just the magic wasn't there anymore. I mean, this has been really heading for this for quite a while, It's just that we were, I don't know, I was trying to keep the band together. I was sort of proud that we'd lasted that long, etc. But gradually I started to feel more and more that Lou had originally started a solo project, his solo project had gradually become a solo career, and it was really taking away from the band. It was almost like he was competing with the band and trying to almost take Foreigner away from us, It was strange feeling. So the relationship deteriorated over the period of the last 3 or 4 years, really. And it got to the point where we started, and as I say, there was no inspiration really from going on between us. And at that point we decided to give Lou a schedule, because we hadn't toured on the last album, and we decided to give him a schedule that included the recording and touring, and basically see how he reacted to it, knowing really that he wouldn't be able to. The phrase I've coined for it is, we basically gave him an offer he couldn't accept. So that's really the basis of it,
So he was more or less maneuvered out then?
Not maneuvered, but it was the time to face up to it, basically. What do you want to do? We don't want to hang around waiting for you to finish your solo albums, and we want to tour this year. Are you prepared to do that kind of thing? And he said, basically said no.
But you announced it to the music industry. How did all those tapes start coming in?
Word of mouth, amazing, and lots of people that we. Contacts, friends that we knew in England, in LA, and everywhere. And then the tapes were sought out really by my brother to a great extent.
Is your brother your manager?
No, he's just he works with me on a lot of things. He's very helpful. He helps musically sometimes too.
Is this an older brother or younger brother?
Younger brother.
Because the Japanese you have to
younger brother.
Distinction.
Well,
I always want to ask you. Was surprised hearing the new record because it didn't really sound like there was any major change. It's almost as if you chose a vocalist in the Lou Gramm mold. At least that was the impression you got.
Well, I think the change that I feel is that we have got back to the balance of what this band used to be really good at. I think the last time we made an album like this was on the 4 album, Thank you. And I feel that, Johnny is a different voice. Johnny's a baritone voice, basically, and Lou was a tenor, naturally, And I think the difference it makes is that there's much more passion when Johnny reaches for the higher notes. And I think Johnny's a bluesier singer than Lou, of course Lou's got a great voice, but I don't think really I think partly to do with the songs as well is the fact that, the familiar, and the way that I write. I've written with Johnny on this album, but my influence in that writing area I think also gives the familiarity of the sound, you see.
Little turns in the melody.
In fact, if Paul Rodgers sang my songs, he would sound probably like Lou Gramm, You know what I mean? It's sort of that's what we've realised, because basically they don't have similar voices, They're similar in a certain way that most, there are about 10 or 15 well-known singers that all sing in the same kind of strength and area, in that genre.
Yeah, it was kind of he put on an old shoe, worn shoe. That's why.
Yeah, to a certain extent, and I think it was important. I didn't want the Lou Gramm sound alike because we heard some serious ones that could sound exactly like Lou on this.
That would have been kind of.
I wanted somebody with their own character.
Mm-hmm.
And gradually, I think he will develop his own identity as we go along.
Yeah.
This is the first album.
Yeah. Was the recording any easier or smoother without Lou? Was there any change in like the actual procedures you went through?
It was more like working with Lou at the beginning. It had become very difficult in the past couple of albums. The other main difference really is that obviously was a lot of Johnny had never gone through an experience like quite as intense as this before, so there was a lot of time that we spent really focusing in on our new direction a bit, and taking a lot of time writing the songs and really pushing ourselves to the extreme, And the other thing is that Johnny is also a very competent guitar player, very good guitar player. He played the solo on Mountain of Love, a song called Mountain of Love. And the co-producer, Terry Thomas, three of us were all guitar players, so it was a serious guitar approach on this album, which I think is different than the more recent albums.
When you speak of intensity, what do you mean? When Foreigner normally goes into the studio, do you guys really push yourself hard? It's not like music is already sort of made up before you go in?
No, we leave a certain amount of area for spontaneity when we go in. We basically get the arrangements outside the studio, but then once you've done the tracks, all those next stages, and particularly when you're concentrating on the vocals, sometimes we try and get it live, bits of live, but the intensity with which Johnny had to sing differently than he'd never been in an experience of making an album in this way, over quite a good period of time, and he had to discover a lot in himself, and we had to bring a lot out of him, so it was interesting in that way. It was very challenging for him.
Baptism of fire, I guess. Like you had to bring out the best in him, but obviously he was in a very sort of pressurized position. This being his first time in the limelight with a major band. Did you do anything to sort of alleviate the pressure, or did you try to turn up the flame a little bit more?
Well, I tried to challenge him and excite, get him passionate. I mean, he didn't need much pushing. He was. The reason I felt so good about him originally is I knew he was a strong character, and he could take a lot. So I gave him a lot,
And he rose to the occasion.
And he certainly rose to the occasion. He's just. I can't say enough about how he rose to the occasion. He really did. And there's also a great understanding between us. There's a great frankness that we lost in the other band, in the other formation. If there's a problem, we talk about it. We get it out and talk about it.
Could it have been a matter of, like, say, when Lou was in the band, that the tension between him and you actually engendered positive results in the music? That wasn't the case at all? And now that you're lacking that now?
No, I'm not lacking that at all. I mean, Jesus.
First of all, is that an apt observation, you think?
No, not really. I don't think. Lou and I used to get on pretty well together,
Mm-hmm.
Just towards the last 5 years or so, yeah. I know, because...
You make it sound like last week.
The last 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
No, I think, there is a tension professionally between Johnny and I, and when, there's definitely a tension when we're writing, we're challenging each other, when we're performing, we're challenging each other. But it's healthy, it's good, and it's positive, it's up. We can live, we don't have to have separate cars to go to the airport or to the show or something, we've got a good understanding of each other. Yeah. Coming from totally different places, and, that's kind of rare, that everything sort of works out, between two people that haven't, that are certainly fairly set in their ways at this point, I'd say.
Are we to assume that Foreigner is more or less de facto the Mick Jones band?
Well, being the founder and the driving force in the band, I direct the band in a way. I guide the band, I suppose. The songs start usually from me. But it's a very democratic band. We pretty much share everything in this band, and the surprising thing was to me when we made, when Lou left, I wondered to myself, well, gosh, how much of Foreigner is me and how much is Lou, kind of thing. I didn't really think about that before.
Is that right? You actually did it?
Yeah. I mean, I thought, Jesus. It was a bit daunting at the beginning, thinking that. And then I realized that, well, I founded the band. I'm very proud of the band, everything we've done together, I still have some things to say, and the band is really the only way I know how to say that properly, and that's why it needed somebody. The person who was going to replace Lou had to be kind of real special in a way, and when Johnny came over, we first started writing together just to see how we could work together. I felt he sort of, the first half an hour, he looked at me and said, well, now I understand. He said, I feel much better because now I can hear immediately where the direction of Foreigner comes from, and I'm happy now to go ahead with this, because he didn't know either. People don't know what the balance is, I guess. So yes, I'm a strong part of the Foreigner identity, but and I think in many ways they look to me to guide the band.
It's been, I guess, 3.5 years since the last Foreigner album was released. During that period of time, the music scene, at least the mainstream, has kind of diversified. Mm-hmm. I guess, he used the word diversified.
Yeah.
What I would say is the share of the rock market has kind of shrunk, because of rap and dance music and whatnot. Your music has sort of stayed true to its roots, though. What's the basis of this self-confidence? Is what he was asking the same part of the question.
Because it's the natural thing for me to do, I do what is natural for me. We've survived a tremendous amount of trends in music and changes, I think it's because what we do is genuine, it's the real thing. I mean, it's what I started to develop when I was in a band called Spooky Tooth in the early 70s, being a part of that whole stable with Free, Traffic. That was my school, or part of my schooling anyway, and that's when I developed my identity more as a musician, and I've just been trying to get it better ever since. And I think now in America I'm seeing great signs of the band feeling coming back with some of the new young bands, There's definitely interesting new bands coming out, from the Black Crowes, obviously the Guns N' Roses type. It's getting back to real rock again, and real meaning in a lot more depth in the music and musicianship, not so much of the flashy Eddie Van Halen clone. It's getting back to, not Eddie's the master, I don't like to hear people copying Eddie Van Halen all the time, But and the rap thing, I think there's room for everything, I think, but I'm getting encouraging signs that there's a lot of good young new bands coming out, and I think you're going to see rocks coming back in the 90s. That's my prediction.
This is a question that sort of requires you to look back over the past, but back, say, in the early and the mid-'80s, there were bands like Journey and Styx that were, in certain ways, lumped together with Foreigner, for better or for worse. These bands fell sort of by the wayside due to the solo careers of respective members within the bands, whereas Foreigner obviously stuck with it and you've survived. Looking back on that situation, first of all, what is your opinion of what happened to those guys? That's part A of the question.
Guess they didn't have the staying power. You know, I think the same thing would have happened to us, you know, if we hadn't had the strength in a way to hold this together and hold out for having somebody like Johnny come along, you know. If I felt that, you know, if I'd gone out and sort of looked for a singer that maybe, you know, just a hired hand type guy and wrote 10 songs and just coasted along on the name of Foreigner, that wouldn't interest me. I've got too many other things to do, you know, with my time, I think, and everybody's time. I wouldn't feel comfortable that way. So it's not like we're keeping something going for the sake of it. This is really definitely the spirit of this band is back so strong, and it really feels like a new band almost now, you know. I haven't had this feeling for a long time, you know. And you know, I think we're stronger than ever. I think we're going to be a much more exciting live band. Johnny's a very dynamic front man. He's a serious animal, you know, on stage, and it's rejuvenated everybody in a way. And we just, you know, it's really happening. We're gonna, I think, in our first career, you know, let's say, we got very high. I always felt we could go a little higher, you know. Now I feel we're ready to go that little bit higher into the major league, you know, real serious top.
When you say top, do you mean like reach a bigger audience or musically to
just excel a bit higher than we reached before as a rock band, as a major rock.
In terms of the quality of the music.
Yeah.
Do you think that in a band, Americans are better suited to be the front man of the band than a Briton would be? Is that generally the rule?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I think it's just a question of who it is, you know, the character, person. I mean, there's been some great English frontmen, some great American frontmen. I mean, I guess probably recently, you know, the balance has been a bit more American.
Rock and roll, especially.
Yeah. But there's some pretty happening English frontmen stuff. That's I wouldn't say it depends on the nationality.
How do your countrymen see you? I mean, a lot of times the Britons will sort of turn a cold shoulder to the expatriate who's made a name for himself abroad.
No, we conquered that really with the 4 album. I think we broke open. I mean, it was a long time coming, but we sort of finally got acceptance on that album. You know, we had a lot of things to combat at the beginning. You know, like the dawn of punk basically happened, and suddenly anything that wasn't punk or anything that was like rock, guitar, sort of rock was out, you know, for the critics. And then I discovered things later, like only just in the last year or two, that like people like Johnny Rotten used to be closet Foreigner fans. His girlfriend told me, Bibi Buell told me, when she was living with him in the 1978, 79, one night he got this new the Hot Blooded on the red vinyl copy of it, and he was playing it all night long. She said, I've been waiting to meet you to tell you that Johnny Rotten kept me up all night one night playing it song 50 times and saying it's a great rock and roll song, and at the time it wasn't, you know, they weren't allowed to say that kind of thing, you know. Critics, you know, Lester Bangs, you know, he used to be terrible criticism of us, you know. One of his friends told me that at a party one Saturday night, at the end, like midnight, you know, he put Foreigner, I think it was Hot Blooded again, and put it on and started playing air guitar, you know, to it. So, you know, anyway, you know, England has, we've had a lot of success there now, and I hope to have a lot more this time. It's still a lot of pride involved for me.
All right. In '89, you released a solo record,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess 2 members of Foreigner guested on that.
Yeah.
And the first part of the question is, how did the making of that record differ from the making of a Foreigner record? The second question, if there wasn't much of a difference, why not just call the Foreigner record at the time?
Well, I would just happen to be writing some stuff I was writing for somebody had asked me to write some music for a musical in London, like a rock musical, which I started to do. It didn't really work out that well because the guy I was working with was a bit crazy, but I started writing these songs, and some people in the record company heard it and asked me, why don't you do a solo album? You've got time, Lou's doing his. And I thought, well, why not? And I started to put the songs together, and the difference really, I guess, is that I have a different voice than Lou, or that strength of singer. I'm more of a mellow type singer, So I really didn't want to set out to compete with Foreigner. I wanted to do something maybe the other side of me, the thing with other thoughts that I have outside of Foreigner, musically. So I think it was different in that way, and it was a release for me of other ideas that I had that I wouldn't probably necessarily do with Foreigner, and just experimenting really, and intended as a solo album, not a solo career really. Both parts of that question?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
You didn't see that as sort of a springboard to a solo career? Like for example, you said he likes your voice better than Lou's.
Really? Okay. What a guy! No, it was a nice thing for me. It was a release of a lot of things for me, and I think, the thing is that I really enjoy the thing of being in a band. I enjoy the exchange, the feeling you get when you're successful, or the feelings, the emotional thing that you share with people, and you almost get a better picture of what's happening to you through somebody else's eyes. It's like, I think the solo career thing is a lonely thing, which I'm not sure I really would like that. I get much more of a kick out of sharing it. But it's nice to do occasionally. Maybe I'll do another one when there's time. The thing is that for me the focus is now back seriously with Foreigner, and I just want to really rock, and Foreigner is the thing that I do that best with. Yeah.
So the history of Foreigner can kind of be, you kind of mark it by the lengthy intervals between albums. So it's just something, a notorious characteristic of the band. You can change producers or whatever.
Yeah.
Do those long intervals owe to your obsession with sort of a perfectionist approach?
Well, the word perfectionist is something that's sort of left over from the period of time when I really did approach it sort of meticulously. I've changed in a way. I think now I've realised that the thing I want to capture the most is the excitement in something, and I've learned gradually. I've been changing, I've been evolving in a way, and funnily, when you evolve, sometimes you tend to simplify it, get back to the basics, And obviously, this was a long time between the albums. That was really mainly because Lou was really not available, and he was seriously pursuing his solo thing, So in that time, I did 3 different things, I produced a band called Flesh and Blood, a new band from LA at the time. I produced an album with Billy Joel, and I had time to do a solo album. So, I mean, had it been, this time, I think there won't be 3 years between albums. It'll be, we're going on tour, a long tour, but I'd like to think that we'll be in the studio by the end of next year.
come up with the second part of that question, but you ever go back to the records and say, gosh, this could have been better, or you look back on what could have been?
No.
Once it's on vinyl.
Oh, yeah, that's basically when you say goodbye to it. Then you go into the next phase of playing it live, you know. But sometimes, you know, I never usually play them, but somebody will want to hear some of the old stuff again. I'm quite proud when I listen to them, you know. Some things age better than others, but no, I don't put myself through that.
要するにそれはさ、
Do you ever think of like trying to stay contemporary by slipping something in the music that's sort of, you know, is sort of in vogue? Something that happens to be the flavor of the week and just sort of peppering up the music.
Not flavor of the week. I mean, I like to explore everything a bit. You know, I mean, in history we've always, I think we've sort of experimented. We've had people like Junior Walker, you know.
That's flavor of the decade.
Flavor of decade past, you know. I don't, you know, I like to remain contemporary. I think I'm pretty much aware of what's going on in music, but I think if we'd have tried to do that, we'd have run into some problems. I think wouldn't naturally be my way of doing it. I mean, at the time of the 4 album, we worked with Tom Dolby, who was ahead of.
That's right. Yeah.
Ahead of the game, almost, you know. So I'd say that it would either be perhaps trying to do something that's maybe ahead, or something that's classic way back. You know, that seems to be the way that we do it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But only if it fits. You know, only if it's. I don't base anything on that kind of thing. I mean, the thing for me basically is the songs and the construction of the songs, and then, you know, if something might fit, you know, or something seems that it might fit, try it, you know. That's why I used the choir on Want to Know What Love Is. Nobody's ever really done that before. Now there's hundreds of them, you know, like literally you see a lot of people using choirs now.
Oh, yeah.
In the last few years.
Yeah, sure.
So I like to think in a way that in our genre of rock we do set a few, you know, trends ourselves.
Miles, it's kind of a complicated question because it deals with, like, you know, names of genres and whatnot. But at the time of Provocateur, when I Want to Know What Love Is, you know, was popular, people started labeling you an AOR band on both sides of the ocean. You know, it's here in Japan and maybe in America as well. And at the time, Lou Gramm was sort of speaking out against us, saying, "No, we're just a hard rock unit. We don't want to be labeled anything other than
that." AOR means album-oriented rock.
Right.
I think what he's probably saying is he means adult-oriented or sort of MOR.
Right, something
MOR, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Middle of the road.
Right, right.
Well, you know, we've always had ballads on our albums. It's just so happened that probably the strongest song on that album was a ballad that was just so huge everywhere that really that was it sort of had a big effect on a lot of people, that song. So and basically they were left with the image of that song from that album as the main song, you know. We still were kind of rocking underneath it. I think, you know, the rest of the content of the album was pretty strong. But Lou, in a way, I think, kind of was using that to trying to use that to his advantage in a way, which I didn't feel was quite fair. What he was doing was taking his part of the rock element out and devoting it to his own career, you know. So I think by the same time that he was saying that, he was almost guilty of destroying it himself, you know.
By not devoting his full to the band.
Yeah, by not devoting by us not really gelling together. And there's only intention in this band, really. This is a rock band, you know. And I think we've come back and proved that way we feel, you know. basically want to show Lou Gramm what Foreigner is.
Great headline for the interview. Okay, yeah. Ending with a rather philosophical question: Are you still? Do you consider yourself a foreigner?
Yeah, I guess so. You know, I mean,
what is a foreigner, and why would you consider yourself a foreigner? I guess.
Foreigner is really a spirit of something, you know, and I think it was a strength that developed over the years, and then it sort of got squashed down a bit in the last few years, and it's sort of back. I mean, when the band pulled together as the three of us, when this crisis happened, that's when the spirit and the meaning of Foreigner started to come back to everybody, the importance of it and the feeling, you know. And I think we've brought it back, you know. There's a pride is back in the band now. There's the desire to regain that pride that we feel we've lost a little bit in this confusion of the last few years, and that's kind of what we're back to do, really, you know. Mm-hmm. Just really go out and light that fire again, you know. Mm-hmm. So Foreigner's a feeling, a spirit, you know, mm-hmm. and it's more important than any one individual of us.
I think what he meant was like the word foreigner, like as referring to an outsider.
Yeah.
Do you still consider yourself are you an outsider, and if so, what is an outsider?
Well, I've travelled a lot around the world, and I've lived in different places. I've very often felt like a foreigner, you know. I must say, I guess I don't feel like a foreigner anymore, you know, in that way, you know. I feel very comfortable, like in Japan, you know. I mean, I know I look like a foreigner, but I've developed an understanding of lots of different countries in the world now, and you know, I don't really feel that way as a foreigner, you know. I feel at the beginning it was to indicate some music coming from a different direction, you know, from a different point, you know. This album is sort of to me a reminder. It's coming back from a different point again now.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I think that'll make the
wow.
So you probably like it in this room. Okay.
I think it's the strongest album for me that we've done for a long time.
I think so.
Did Lou Gramm formally announce he was in the band, or was he formally released from the band, or what notified the public and the music industry?
We didn't really make a lot of noise about it. What happened was we started to prepare this new album with Lou, you know, and over the period of the first week, you know, we started to get together to write a bit, and just the magic wasn't there anymore. I mean, this has been really heading for this for quite a while, you know. It's just that we were, I don't know, I was trying to keep the band together. I was sort of proud that we'd lasted that long, etc. But gradually I started to feel more and more that Lou had originally started a solo project, you know. His solo project had gradually become a solo career, you know, and it was really taking away from the band. It was almost like he was competing with the band and trying to almost take Foreigner away from us, you know. It was strange feeling. So the relationship deteriorated over the period of the last 3 or 4 years, really. And it got to the point where we started, and as I say, there was no inspiration really from it going on between us. And at that point, we decided to give Lou a schedule, because we hadn't toured on the last album, and we decided to give him a schedule that included the recording and touring, and basically see how he reacted to it, knowing really that he wouldn't be able to. The phrase I've coined for it is, you know, we basically gave him an offer he couldn't accept. So that's really the basis of it, you know.
So he was more or less maneuvered out then?
Not maneuvered, but, you know, it was the, you know, course, Lou's got a great voice, but I don't think really if you know, I think partly to do with the songs as well is the fact that, you know, the familiar, you know, and the way that I write. You know, I've written with Johnny on this album, but my influence in that writing area, I think, also gives the familiarity of the sound.
I see.
You see,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Little turns in the melody. And
in fact, you know, if Paul Rodgers sang my songs, he would sound probably like Lou Gramm. You know, you know what I mean? It's sort of that's what we've realised, because basically they don't have similar voices. You know, they're similar in a certain way that most you know, there are about 10 or 15 well-known singers that all sing in the same kind of strength and area, you know, in that genre. You know.
Yeah, it was kind of he put on an old shoe, worn shoe. That's why.
Yeah, to us, you know, time to face up to it. Basically, you know, what do you want to do? We don't want to hang around waiting for you to finish your solo albums. We want to tour this year. Are you prepared to do that kind of thing? And he said, basically said no.
But you announced it to the music industry. How did all those tapes start coming in?
Word of mouth, amazing, and lots of people that we, you know, contacts, friends that we knew in England, in LA, and everywhere. And then the tapes were sought out really by my brother to a great extent.
Is your brother your manager?
No, he's just a.
Assistant?
He works with me on a lot of things. You know, he's very helpful. He helps musically sometimes too. You know.
Is this an older brother or younger brother?
Younger brother.
Because the Japanese you have to.
Younger brother.
Distinction. Okay.
Well.
Always a wise guy. You know, was surprised hearing the new record because it didn't really sound like there was any major change. Right? I mean, it's almost as if you chose a vocalist in the Lou Gramm mold. At least that was the impression you got.
Well, I think the change that I feel is that we have got back to the balance of what this band used to be really good at. You know, I think the last time we made an album like this was on the 4 album. You know, thank you. And I feel that. You know, Johnny is a different voice. Johnny's a baritone voice, basically, and Lou was a tenor, naturally, you know. And I think the difference it makes is that there's much more passion when Johnny reaches for the higher notes. And I think Johnny's a bluesier singer than Lou, you know.